Welcome to 2025's gloriously warm and dry PGA show. With,
Beautiful day.
Chad Embrey from
Beautiful day.
Fujikura Shafts. So, just been hitting the latest line extensions to the Velocore Plus range, and for the red, blue, black into the hybrid lines, and yeah, the red and new addition to the hybrids.
Correct.
From the
Correct.
original generation.
Correct. Yeah.
And when you're implementing hybrid shafts versus wood shafts, how differently do you have to think about the designs? It's not just as simple as I'll take these profiles and bang, there's a
Well, for us, with each new Velocore we come out with, and the success we had with the previous editions, it's not extremely difficult coming up with new ones because we're not diverting away from what has been so successful. So, with new technologies and materials that come on the market, we're constantly toying and playing with things. So we're not looking to reinvent the wheel as it is. We're trying to improve what is already great. And so each time we make an iteration of the Ventus, yes, it gets better, but there's not a lot of, well, I take that back. My engineers are going to be extremely upset with me. It is a very tedious process, very time consuming. But at the end of the day, they're trying to make what is already good better, and they've done that with this new series of shaft. Obviously, hybrids and wood shafts are extremely different. Turf interaction, not turf interaction. So there is complexities built into the engineering behind each one that's different. But we've come up with an absolute rocket ship here. The red, as you mentioned, is new for us. Yeah. It's funny how the color kind of dictates what the player kind of gravitates toward based on their own game. And we found that when we didn't have a red offering, you'd have a whole host of red Ventus wood players that say, where's my red? Interestingly enough, though, the blue and the lighter weights were not red profiles, but they were more red ball flight spin rates. But because it was blue, people were like, I'm not a blue guy, I'm a red guy. So we came out with the red, making people happy, making people play better golf. That's what we do.
I think it's interesting with when hitting the red profile, we all have the expectations of what it's going to feel like before we hit it. And noticeably with that one, and I think actually through this range, and we'll come onto this one, is for me with this series, it's the stability in the bottom end of the shaft, you might kind of say the strength of the shaft at impact. The red, there's definite kick through the shaft. You can feel the load through the midsection, but it's still very stable in that tip end. You see the flight out of it, but it's not a kind of a spinny, balloony kind of ball flight. It's up and forwards.
And that's the Ventus line. It's the Velocore technology, right? We've talked about it. None of them are meant for guys looking to get extreme launch, right? We say the red's the higher profile, and it is of the three, but that doesn't mean it's a Vista Pro 45. It's not going to get lost up there, and it's not going to overspin. It is the highest ball flight, highest spinner of the three, but it's still a tour-oriented product, right? Until you start getting into the super light stuff, the 60-gram R2s and whatnot. But it's still, they're all meant for tour play, and we see that, right? I mean, it's all over the tour. So when we do have that higher launch, higher spin, it's not, like you say, it's more stable, it's more controllable. The dispersion's great, but it's steady and it's solid through impact.
And another line extension, the Ventus, the Velocore Plus White. So coming in the single weight, but at this sort of weight, again, how differently you think about this as a model? It's it's something that hasn't existed until this series. So what's been the main kind of thought process behind this line extension?
Yeah, and this one is, we mentioned about trying to keep these similar to previous generations. We've never had this before, right? So when we talk about being tour-oriented products throughout the entire Ventus line, we lacked the golfer that is maybe aging, looking for swing speed. So we did redevelop and redesign this one from kind of the ground up. Obviously we use Velocore technology, but we wanted to spread that to a larger consumer base, and that's what we did here. So lighter, getting more swing speed, but still the stability. You hit it a couple times out there. And even though we make it in a maximum S-Flex, and you're probably an X-Flex guy, let's be real here, Simon.
No, for a wheel, I'm definitely not.
You were striping it pretty well, right? So the dispersion's great with it. You increase swing speed. It's a little bit softer profile in terms of getting that launch and getting a little bit more spin, but inclusive for a different consumer that we had not previously had with the Ventus shaft.
And certainly I think the real takeaway for me with this one is how there's a heavier hit to it than most shafts at this sort of weight and this sort of flight profile. And by that I mean actually the kind of guts at strike, rather than being a lighter weight kind of kickier, tinier almost at the field of impact. This one feels like it's got a real, there's some stoutness to the bottom. Again, it's the Velocore material.
Yeah.
When you're dropping to this weight, how do you have to utilize the Velocore Plus material differently? Or is it more a case of looking at how you utilize other materials within the shaft to get the weight down?
Well, obviously there's less material, right? That gets weight down. That's a big one. Actually the biggest, if you're gonna be picky about it. The Velocore is a full length, right? It's a full length, so there's not movement of the Velocore high, low.
Yeah.
It's the Velocore base multi-material core all the way up and down the shaft. It's additional materials and where we put those materials within the shaft on the outside of that core. So again, going with this, it adds a little bit of engineering that goes behind it, and the fact that we're taking a lot of material out to lighten it, but you still want to keep that stability. We don't want a Velocore shaft that people are spraying all over the place, right? And so some materials that people use to make lightweight shafts can be extremely rigid, and so using too much of that or too little of that ends up with dispersion patterns that aren't necessarily conducive for playing good golf, right?
And that was very noticeable when I was hitting it, and I think it's some footage that will be shown of me swinging it as well, is how I was saying, we were chatting about it, saying actually it's the lack of extra movement you get. Normally for me, going under this sort of weighted shaft, I see more of a tailing and more of a loop at the end of the flight, whereas actually it held its line really, really well.
It did. You were hitting it really well.
And even when I tried to step on it, tried to step on it.
You stepped on it.
But it still held flight line really well.
Yeah,
So,
and that's again, it becomes tedious and boring to continue to talk about Velocore, but it's the truth of the matter, right? So Velocore definitely keeps balls in a tighter shot pattern, and it works on toe hits, heel hits. We're trying to keep miss hits controlled, playable, findable, and hittable.
And what that does, the other factor is it helps the gearing effect. You're getting a little less twisting through them, but distortion, so you're going to get less gearing and less of that loop, which is where the shaft can have a major influence on that shot dispersion relative to strike point as well on the face. So Fujikura giving a complete benefit with the Velocore Plus material to all golfers, no matter what head you're using. So
there you
go.
Very
much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that explanation. Always great to catch up.
Likewise.
Thank you for watching, and look out for all the other videos that'll be coming. We'll be editing this and getting it up as soon as possible, and we'll get these in the studio. When are we looking at?
February 24th is the launch date, so we expect them to be in stock, ready to rock, end of February.
See you then.